Hey Bloom fam, I'm Tay.
I'm Tosh.
And we are Living the Bloom. Today we are excited to have my dear friend Dawn Norman with us. Hey girl, hey.
Happy to be here. Hey.
Hey.
Thanks for being here with us.
Thank you so much for coming. So this is my triple sister. We're triple sisters. We got the Law. Mm-hmm. We have AKA.
Yes.
I said my sorrow.
I say the Delta's in the house.
And Jack and Jill, right?
Yes.
And so we have been friends for, I don't know, like 7 or 8 years. No, longer
Feels
than
like
that.
over 10 at
10
this
years.
point.
It is
Yeah.
over 10.
Yeah.
I'm so crazy. Okay. Yes. Time has flown by.
It has.
When we're having fun. So I just am so grateful that you're here. We have been on a journey, a good friendship journey for the last 10 years or so, with our families connecting, with us connecting, with us making money together.
Yes.
With our trades. So you and I trade a lot, but Dawn is the one that really introduced me to trade and travel.
Okay.
Yes. And we would talk about it daily. Like, okay, what trades are we getting in? What trades are we not, and she is Miss Risk Taker.
Well,
y'all 2 peas in a pod.
I mean,
2 peas in a pod.
probably more risk than I actually need to take, but yes.
One day she was like,
No risk, no
girl,
reward.
guess how much money I lost? You remember that?
Yeah,
And
do
was
I
like,
remember?
Oh my God.
Yes.
Yes. So I just told her what my loss was for today, which wasn't even half of what
today?
you lost. Yes, from that Eli Lilly option that I just did not, those 10 options that I have
Oh, okay.
that I did not get out of. But so sis.
So many lessons. That's a whole topic
whole nother
in and
topic.
of
You still trade,
itself.
though?
I do. I do
Okay,
still
good.
trade.
Yeah.
I was telling Jonte when I came in and she was talking about her contracts, I was saying, I still love to trade. I still look at the market every day. But what I have done differently since losing that big amount, okay,
Is
I paused,
adjusting?
is making sure that I'm not trading when I'm busy.
That's a good tip.
Yeah.
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 So
Because it's
yes.
easy to lose sight of it because you are sidetracked and then you look up and you thought you were going to be one place and you're not.
Exactly.
And it's going to slow down that you can't turn it around.
Yep. And you're like, let me not exit. It's going to recover.
It's going to
Yeah.
recover.
But it ends up doing the opposite.
Which is what my Lily trade
So
did.
you just
I
gotta
was
get
like,
out.
Oh, it can come back. It didn't.
Yes.
But anyway, so we have really had some good laughs over that. And we've also gone through family transitional things together. So one of the things that I wanted to bring you on to talk about is a subject that many people struggle with, right? There are some guarantees in life. You're going to live and you're going to die. And the death part, even though we know it's inevitable, is really the part that we don't want to talk about, but should talk about, right?
Yeah.
And so before we get into those details, though, just tell us a little bit about yourself.
Okay, sure. There's lots of things I could say.
I know.
So let's see. At a high level, as Jonte mentioned, we've been friends for a long time. Throughout that time, I've heard about Tasha and all the wonderful things and synergies that you all have. And so I'm so happy to be here, and I'm so proud of what you're doing. I think it's great, and it's serving a place that is so much needed, right? And so thanks for allowing me to be a part of your community today.
Absolutely.
Who am I? So I'm a lawyer, as you mentioned.
Yes.
Lawyer by day, sometimes by night.
As well, a really, really good one.
I've spent the majority of my career practicing in the oil and gas space. Never thought I would be here talking to you today about what we're going to be talking about today.
I know.
I am happily married to my lovely husband, Joseph,
Hey,
of 21 years.
Oh.
Yes.
Awesome.
Yes.
And together we have 3 children. An 18-year-old who's graduating this year.
And going to the
going to college.
ATL.
Yes.
But can we just pause? You don't even look like you have an 18-year-old.
Exactly. She looks phenomenal.
I do. I have the birth certificate, the stress, and the maternity photos to prove it.
Yes.
18 years old, 14 years old, and 11. So my days are full, needless to say, but they're rewarding. And, happy to be just pursuing something that I'm passionate about as well.
Yeah. So growing up, you grew up in Beaumont,
I
Texas.
did. Big money, Texas.
Big money,
Okay.
Texas.
Yes.
And you had a really, really close-knit family and a very close relationship with your grandmother.
I did.
Who I had the opportunity to meet a couple times.
Yes.
Granny was jazzy.
Granny
classy,
was jazzy all the way until the end.
All the way.
Yes.
And I just loved your relationship with her because I would tell you all the time that it reminded me of my relationship with my great-grandmother, and they look a lot alike. And so tell us about your relationship with her and the connection that you have, continue to have with her. Even though she's
absolutely. It's hard to capture in a few words what Granny meant, not just to me, but to our family, as a whole. I think, so I'm the first of her grandchildren. And so all of my little cousins know that I'm the favorite, and they argue with me about whether that's true, but first and the favorite. But honestly, because I was the first, I got a chance to spend time with her, just the two of us.
Yeah.
And what was really special about Granny is that I felt like the only one then. And no matter how many grandchildren she added, I still felt like the only one.
Very special.
But here's the thing. Every single one of my cousins would say the same thing.
Yes.
They felt like the only one, right? And just thinking about that gets me teary, because that's really the goal we have, right? As women, as mothers, one day as grandmothers.
Absolutely.
You hear all the time, what people will remember is how you made them feel. And she captured that in such a beautiful way.
She did.
That's beautiful.
So, there are so many things about her, but one thing that really stands out as we talk about kind of being prepared for the unexpected is that she was a planner, right? So even before she started planning or understanding the importance of planning for her family, she was the youngest of 6 kids.
Okay.
Which meant she ended up being responsible for the estates of her parents, right?
Right.
And we know in those times they weren't doing estate plans, right? Yeah. So she was left with homes that some people lived in and other people paid taxes on.
Correct.
Multiple children.
Relate to that, right?
I can unfortunately relate.
Yes. Right? Children in different states, dozens of grandchildren. And, often as we do as a culture, trying to do the right thing, right? But without really knowing what our parents would have wanted.
Right.
Yeah.
So I think she pulled that into her own life. And so what she did very well was plan. She wanted to make sure that her children did not have to do that, right? Her planning looked like, my insurance policies are in the middle Chester drawer in the guest room, okay?
Yeah.
It looked like, here's my will. I'm going to handwrite it so you know exactly what I want.
Yes.
Here's what I want to wear. Here's where I want it to be.
Yes.
Here's how much you should spend on a casket, because I don't want you to go broke buying that. Okay, so she did this type of planning.
Yeah.
And we appreciated it, but we didn't know how important it was going to be. So she did what she could. Yeah. But I caveat that with, she did what she knew to do.
Yes.
Okay. And so that's an important piece. But she did something. And so that really was a beautiful gift that she left with us. And it would be a couple years later that I really realized how important that gift really is.
Yeah.
Right. And so as an attorney, I presume that many of your family members look to you to say, okay, what do we do now in the aftermath?
Yes.
Was that the case? And were you even expecting to be in that position?
Right. So I mentioned Granny passing. She had a lot of things in place. And so there were gaps to fill. But if you...
Such as what?
So for instance, she had a will, but she hadn't identified an executor that was still living. So she did her will many years ago, but she didn't update her will. So that's an important piece of planning.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
She left some of her heirlooms to her children, but when you have 4 and there's 1 heirloom, what does that look like? Who gets to keep it? Does that mean we should sell it and split up the profits? Yes. Right? We don't think about those little details.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
And perhaps you're leaving children at home, but do your children live in the city where the home is? Who's going to provide for the upkeep and maintenance of the home?
Yes.
So just all of those little practical aspects of planning that she just didn't think about, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yep.
Because your mom has how many siblings?
She has 4 siblings.
Okay.
So together with her, there are 5 of them.
Right.
My grandmother lived in Beaumont, Texas for all of her life. She has 1 child that lives in Beaumont, but the majority of them do not live there.
Correct.
So that has its own challenges.
Right. Right. Okay. So what was the most difficult thing? You identified the gaps that needed to be filled. What were the things that you had to step in and do? Did you assist with that? Did you retain somebody else to support that effort? How did that look?
Right. So with Granny, I felt like because a lot of pieces were in place, the real gaps that needed to be filled for her estate were relational, right?
Yes.
They were using the negotiation skills I have as a lawyer to help siblings communicate between themselves to really figure out what needed to happen, right? Yeah. And then keep them on task with actually doing it. Because sometimes, too, when you're in an emotionally charged situation, you're also going through your own grieving process. It's very easy to just let things sit, right? And not actually get done.
Yes.
So that was a piece of it. Then you fast forward 2 years and another family member passed away really unexpectedly this time, right? So Granny was 93 years old. With 93 years, I think, comes the awareness that we're all going to have an end of life, right? So she was able to think about some of the things that you start to think about when you know that this part of your life is probably coming to a natural end. So for this second incident, you have someone who's seemingly healthy, got married 30 days earlier, recently came back from a honeymoon, and no longer here.
Wow.
Right.
So the difference in that situation and my grandmother's situation where there was some planning in place, because this was so unexpected, you have someone who's relatively young.
Yeah.
And just like all of us, you think you have time. There were no pieces in place.
Yeah.
Right?
And with them being recently married, it's like, have you even got an insurance policy on the person to pay
That's
for it?
exactly right.
Yes.
And so you hone in on a piece that's very important because death planning is about continuously planning. It's not planning once, but it's also ensuring that you're constantly revisiting, you're changing your plans as your life circumstances change, because that becomes very important, right? So as a family lawyer, which Jonte has pointed out, when there are gaps in plans, that becomes my responsibility as the family lawyer, right?
Yeah.
And as I said before, I'm a litigator. I'm primarily in the oil and gas space. I'm not an estate planning lawyer. That has not been my area of expertise. But I am grateful, though, that my family and friends do rely on me for advice and recommendations in spaces they may feel uncomfortable in. Right. We can be uncomfortable together and usually arrive at the answer.
Right.
But because I was thrust into a situation that I had to help with, it was just immediately an awakening for me about the importance of doing something that we all know is going to be relevant. Yes, at some point.
Yeah.
But nevertheless, we have a tendency to either wait or to place it on the back burner.
Yeah.
To just feel like there's another time and place to do it. So going through that helped me really understand, you know what? The greatest gift I can give my loved ones is to plan while I'm here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's true.
Yeah.
Because it was hard. It was hard.
Very hard.
And it's hard to do while you're also grieving.
Yeah.
Yes. You is there anything you want to add to that discussion?
No, I
because
I recently lost my dad, so I feel you 100% because for him, even though when we found out that he was sick and we needed to do planning, it was still like, okay, tomorrow we'll talk about it. Tomorrow we'll talk about it. And you get to the point where tomorrow doesn't come.
Yes.
And you still haven't addressed and did the proper planning.
Right.
And so, yeah, this is really an important topic for me because I felt it genuinely. And you look up and it's too late and you wish you would have done something different.
Yes, absolutely. And when you think about the world we live in today, right? Things are moving fast. We see every day on the news something unexpected happening, right?
Yeah.
This is really about planning for the unexpected.
It is.
And not only are you planning for the unexpected, you're revisiting because your dynamic changes, and it also changes frequently, right?
Yes.
You may get a divorce. You may get remarried. You may be already married and have additional children.
Yeah.
Correct.
You may inherit children through guardianship or adoption or otherwise, right? You may become the sole provider of an elderly parent. So much about our dynamics are changing all of the time.
Yeah.
So we should be doing what we can do now while we're here, while we're strong, while we have a voice, right? While we're able to really provide a roadmap for our loved ones that they can then implement with confidence.
Right.
And really give themselves, you're giving them the ability to go through a grieving process in a way that is healthy and focused on their well-being.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Not
Absolutely.
on closing gaps that you left behind that could have easily been filled.
Yeah. And I think what you're saying is really important. My husband and I went about 5 years or so ago to get our documents, done. So we have our will and our medical directives and all of those associated documents. But we were very intentional, as you mentioned, because there are life-changing circumstances and events, to have multiple people listed. If this person is not here, then this is the next person. If this person is not here, then this person, right? We were intentional about putting 3 people just in case, because you don't know what's going to happen. And we may forget to make the changes. Even with assets, we've talked about, okay, we've acquired more assets since then, so we need to go and adjust those documents. So that's really also critically important. And one of my best friends, I have all of her documents, and she came in for my birthday and said, I need to make an adjustment. Let me take this back home to Atlanta and I'll get it back to you, so that, so she's constantly updating, because she added another insurance policy, the IUL that we talked about. She added that for the girls, and she had something else happen. So she wanted to update that so that I would know how to manage that and make sure that that was incorporated in her documents. So updating is really critical.
Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. So going through those 2 experiences, I really felt like God inspired me to pour out resources, information, and tools to people.
Yes.
So that they don't end up in the situation that I was in.
Right.
And I'm capable. I was able to jump in and figure things out.
Yeah.
Thankfully, but that's not always the case. And it was not easy. It was not easy.
Yes. So I think Granny is proud of you launching My Death Plan, right? So tell us about that. What is My Death Plan?
Yes. So I talked about just the passion around the topic, being inspired by kind of these life-changing events. So my prayer was, how can I get this information to others in a way that is accessible and encourage them to actually plan? So in comes My Death Plan. And the name is jarring, and that's intentional, because I have two missions.
Right.
One is to destigmatize the word death, and the second is to increase death planning through education.
Yes.
And so
I love that. I really, really love that, because people are fearful of it. They know it's going to happen, but they're scared to talk about it. They don't want it to happen. They think they have more time.
Yes.
The other thing is they're afraid that they don't have financial resources to retain an attorney or someone to assist them with the planning. And they don't know where to start or what to do, right? Those are different things, or all of those combined, right? And so I love that you've made it accessible. So explain a little bit more details about what's in the packaging, or what's in the
Yes, absolutely. And I'm glad you mentioned that some people cannot afford and don't have the resources or the network to go out and get a lawyer, right?
Yes.
Well, the beauty of the workbook is it's really something that anyone, anywhere can pick up and get started. So it's organized into categories, and it really is a roadmap of considerations, death planning considerations.
Okay, so it's a workbook.
It's a workbook.
Okay.
And it really takes you topically through the types of items you should be thinking about. And it's not just legal considerations. So because I'm a lawyer, people automatically think it's a legal resource. it touches on some legal aspects, but it's a very practical tool.
Yes.
I'm encouraging you to do things like designate beneficiaries. I'm talking to you about writing your own obituary. Oh, right?
Right.
Now, you don't have to call it an obituary. You can call it a biography.
Yeah.
But it's something that a person can pick up and know which portions of your life you wanted highlighted.
Right.
Yes.
Right? In the case of my loved one, I had to start with a blank piece of paper and a pen.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I
And
hope
that's so emotional.
It's
having
so
to
emotional.
write about the person that you
Yes.
love so dearly instead of having it already
Already, yeah.
outlined.
Yeah, and I hope that he was honored in the write-up. I put my heart and soul into it literally, but I don't know that I captured what he would have wanted to be
Right.
remembered by, right? I started off saying, I'm a lawyer, I'm a mom, I'm a wife. But what legacy do I want to leave? Only I know that, right?
Right.
So write it ahead of time,
Yeah.
I
right?
love that.
That's
I
a
love
good
that.
idea.
That is a good idea.
I'm talking to you about creating legacy contacts for your digital accounts.
Oh,
Right?
wow.
I'm helping you understand the importance of setting up medical IDs in your phone as well, so that if something were to happen to you,
yes.
people could access it. Apple and Google know who to give access to.
Yes.
Okay, so that's something that you can set up in advance. If you pass away, they'll give the access to your accounts to
Yes.
the person who you designate?
Yes.
I did not know that.
Yes, absolutely.
Wow, that is good to know.
Yes.
So
So
it's like, do I have to leave my husband my passwords? But
Not if you
might
don't
take
want
a peek before I get out of here.
me and my sister cousin have an understanding. If something happens to me, destroy everything on the phone.
Right.
So those are the types of considerations. So think of my death plan as a workbook to help you think.
About all the facets associated with
yeah.
it. Because even what you're talking about, it's not just, okay, what's going to happen to my home and my insurance policies and my 401k. It's also the medical information, medical directives, access to my stuff on my
Yes.
devices.
It's my pets.
Yeah.
My pets, all of the
It's
things.
it's all of those
All of the
things. And the workbook was really cathartic for me because it was part of my healing journey. So throughout those topics, I'm also sharing my story and what I
love
went
it.
through at each of these stages, trying to also sort this for my family members. So that's what it is. It's an e-workbook. You can complete it online. You can store it locally. And I encourage you in the workbook to identify someone you love who knows how to access it.
Okay.
Yes.
And so if something were to happen to you, if you did nothing else but the workbook, it would provide a roadmap and instructions that your loved ones could then implement.
Yes.
wow.
Yes. I love that. How did you, some of the things that you thought through were those things that you had thought about before you went through this process?
Had never thought of it before.
Yeah. Yeah.
Had never thought of it before.
Right.
Isn't it amazing how God can put something on your heart in a situation when you didn't even expect it? Like that's a beautiful burden of something that you didn't even expect.
Yes, at all. And it, as I've worked on it this past year, so the workbook was released in April of last year, 2024. It was actually released on Granny's birthday.
Yeah.
And there's really no way I could have completed this effort while also grieving and also completing these tasks, but for God being in it, because I wouldn't have had the energy. And thinking back on it right now, I don't know where the energy came from. So I truly believe it's God inspired. And I hope that at the very least, it encourages those who interact with the workbook to do something.
Yeah.
Do something. So much of our community is focused on self-improvement
Yeah.
in our financing, through investing, like you all are talking about here, through our mental health and our physical health. So we're doing all this to be better so the next generation doesn't have to start over.
Right.
Planning for the unexpected is a part of that.
Part of that.
Yeah.
Because why accumulate wealth? Why accumulate things and assets and even knowledge if you're not able to securely pass it on to the next generation?
Absolutely.
Yes. You are doing a phenomenal job. I would say in the way that you walk through the workbook, does it help people avoid having to go through probate potentially?
So yes, the short answer is yes.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
The longer answer is whether or not you have assets in your estate that will require probate is a personal choice.
Correct.
But what I do in the workbook is walk you through considerations to determine whether or not you want to pass your assets on through probate or otherwise. Mm-hmm. And I help introduce you to tools that will allow you to facilitate that.
Right.
So there's a 3-step approach with the workbook. Mm-hmm. So the goal is really to download the workbook and complete it. So the completed part is the hard is the hard thing sometimes for folks. Mm-hmm. Over the past year, so many people have downloaded the workbook
and haven't completed
and have not completed it. Yeah. So you complete the workbook. When your workbook is complete, I then offer a free consultation call to talk to you about what you've completed.
Right.
And to serve as a quarterback of sorts to help you identify the professionals you need to help execute various parts of your plan.
Yes.
Now, you don't have to do that. What you have in the end is a usable product. But if you want to take it a step further, to your point, maybe you need a will, maybe you don't. Maybe you need help setting up a living trust, maybe you don't. Maybe you need someone to help you with an encrypted storage device that has passwords for accounts that you don't want otherwise accessible. So everyone is going to have a different need. But in the end, your completed workbook is really a customized roadmap for your situation.
Yes. Wow. So the consult is to help the individual determine what further actions they need to take to execute all of the plans.
That's exactly right.
Okay. I love that.
It's really good.
Yes. Okay. That is super dope.
It's really good.
Like,
thank you.
For real. I have a question around the probate. So, I guess in the state of Texas, is probate required for any property when someone passes and they don't have a will, or is the property required to go through probate even when they do have a will?
Good question. So in the state of Texas, you have the option to create a will, right? It's not a mandatory vehicle. But if you don't have a will, then all of your assets automatically pass pursuant to rules and statute, essentially.
Okay.
And if you have property and don't have a will and you've not made other arrangements, then probate is automatic for your loved ones who are left behind if they want to actually inherit those assets themselves, which that's what you want them to do, right? There are opportunities, though, for instance, if you own a home, to place that home and other assets into a living trust. And that living trust then allows you to bypass the probate process.
Okay. So in the situation where you have a person that passes away who has children that are not children to the wife, are the children, if there's no will, are the children entitled to that person's inheritance through probate?
Yes, they are. So in Texas, at least, the statute gets really specific about who inherits and what they inherit.
Tell us just a little bit. Just a tad. You ain't got to go into too, but just a little bit.
Now, I have to say, this is not legal advice. I've not been hired to give legal advice.
But I'm just interested just a little bit.
Yes.
And what the children are entitled to.
And seriously, because this is such an individual matter and the way the laws apply to your individual circumstances are very unique, is why I give that disclaimer. So I'm speaking in generalities, right? But pursuant to the statute, as a surviving spouse, you would be entitled to a percentage of the assets. And then depending on the children and whether they are children of the marriage or children outside of the marriage, the statute will also say which percentage of those assets they would inherit as well.
Okay. I just think it's important, especially, I say women because a lot of our audience is women, and they may get remarried or they may marry someone who, and they have kids. I just want them to think about what is it that you want your children to have, especially if you're not married to their father, because it's very important that you be specific with that.
Yes.
Because you can marry somebody, at the end of the day, nobody is going to love you exactly like you love your children. You could have a supporting spouse. They could support your kids. They could love your kids, but you don't know how people are going to act when you're not here.
That's absolutely.
And I just want women to protect, or fathers, protect your children. And it's your responsibility to do that, because when you leave this earth, you don't know but you can't expect another person to carry out wishes that they don't even know. They're going to do what they want to do. So I just want people to think about, be specific and
Very specific.
and execute exactly what you want your children to have. Protect your children.
Yes.
I agree. Yeah. And even for us, I have a bonus baby, right? And I was intentional about making sure that when we were crafting our documentation, that it was very clear that I would still pass. Like if my husband happens to pass before me, I didn't officially adopt my bonus baby, right? And so I didn't want to exclude her from the portion that I had. So we were very explicit about, nope, she gets this percentage and the boys get this percentage, and they are treated the same as if I birthed her. Just to make that clear for us, I wanted to do that as well.
Yes, absolutely.
Right?
And it's very smart to do. As you say, in 2025, our families look
Yeah, they're blended. They're
different than maybe they did last year. Certainly different than families looked 25 years ago.
Yeah.
You are in the most powerful position now to decide what you want to happen.
correct.
Right. And there are tools available to do it. You know, whether you use the workbook or use another tool or hire a lawyer or do it yourself, you have to do it.
Yeah. So and I guess it's just different for everyone, but about how long does it take to fill out the workbook?
So the workbook is a roadmap of about 10 categories. I say in the intro of the workbook, you can jump into it anywhere. You can decide where you want to start. You can stop and start. The most important part is finishing, right? Which I said earlier. It's a sensitive topic, and I think the time it takes to complete it depends on the complexity of your situation, honestly. It depends on how long you want to take to think about it, how much thought you want to put into it, whether you want to revisit it, right? I think it's thought-provoking in a way that you're not expecting initially, because again, if people were thinking about these things, there would be no need for the workbook.
Right.
Yeah.
So I think I'm safe in saying it's probably going to take longer than you expect. But I do think you can pace it in a way that's really workable, that you can integrate into your life and easily complete a section, within an hour or two.
Okay.
I would say generally.
Yeah, that's a reasonable time frame.
I think so. And I think too, talking with people and communicating what your wishes are, just like you said before, even as you complete the workbook and grant access to whomever you'd like to grant access to, but also verbally kind of walking through that with them and talking to them. So if they have questions that they need clarification about, that you can think through that and go back to the workbook and modify or adjust those portions, right? Just to make it clearer to the extent that you've gone through it.
That's absolutely right. In one of the later sections in the workbook, it talks about providing a supplemental letter or audio recording to then go with your workbook. Because I can see something on a page, but to your point, now, Mama, what were you thinking when you wrote that? Because I don't know. It provides explanation. I was even thinking about, I have 3 children, right? I don't know who I'm going to select as the executor 25 years from now versus today, right? If they're adults. But they might also have questions about why I selected who I did.
Yes.
And I'm not necessarily going to provide that input in the workbook, but I could provide it in a letter.
Yeah.
I could say, I love all 3 of you.
Right.
But because I know that X has the capacity, the bandwidth, the desire, whatever my reason might be, this is why I made the choice. And what it does is 2 things. It provides clarity.
Yeah.
But it also gives them a gift, because they're not arguing amongst themselves about the why, the who, and what does this mean.
Yeah.
Just take that burden off of them. We take care of them as mothers while we're here. And in my mind, it's a way of taking care of them when we're not here.
Yes.
Yeah. And I think it's really important, because my grandmother, just like Granny did, she has everything in a certain place. She has communicated with her children. She tells me where the stuff is, just like, baby, remember that's there. She has picked out the songs that she wants at her funeral. She has written the obituary. She has the will. My mom is first. If it can't be my mom, my aunt, who is the next oldest, then it's her. That's the way that she methodically thought through it. And so we're having the conversation so that we know what to do. She's bought the plot We know where she's going to be laid to rest. She's, all of that is already done. The headstone is there with her name to make it easier so that the 5 of them know what to do.
Yes.
And how to manage. And she's verbally communicating those things on a regular basis. But she's demystified it for our family.
Yes. And that's
because
so
she's
beautiful.
having those discussions. Yeah.
I love what she's doing. And I think if you pull that thread through, what I'm really trying to do is get us to be just as intentional when we're young as we are when we're old.
Absolutely.
Because there's no guarantee we're going to get there. Right? So I really want to make this a lifestyle. And I'm really excited about where we're going next with the workbook.
Yes, I love it. We're so proud of you.
Yeah,
Thank you.
Love this idea. Is digital the only format that it's available in?
I'm so glad you asked. So as I mentioned, we rolled out the e-workbook last year. We've gotten so much positive feedback about it, but we're always brainstorming about, okay, what's next? How do we get this into more hands, right? So I'm happy to say that in 2025, we're actually rolling out an app.
Oh, cool.
Yes,
Nice.
yes. So the app, of course, is going to be a more dynamic experience. It's going to allow you to interact with your information more frequently, right? You can fill it out on the go. You're more likely to make real-time updates. But what I'm really excited about is it's also going to incorporate reminders
Oh, yeah.
and suggestions based on the last time you completed your information, the fact that there's been a recent legal change, the fact that it's February 1st and maybe you need to update your beneficiary designation. And so it's going to allow you to live and breathe it because I really want it to be a part of your life, just like you do with all your other apps, right?
Yeah.
So I think the app, and it's going to be called the Goodbye Gift,
I love it.
is going to really infuse planning into your life because that's what we want. We don't want it to be a once a year thing. We don't want it to be something you think about or even complete the workbook and put it on the shelf, right?
Yeah.
Although there's still going to be a place for that. I want you living it, breathing it, and thinking about it.
Yes.
So along with your trading app, you'll have the Goodbye
Yes.
Gift.
Yeah, I love that. So we have to make sure that we put the link in the episode for people who are
Absolutely
interested.
will. Yes. So tell them where you can find My Death Plan.
Yes. So you can find us on Instagram. Everything is My Death Plan. So you can find us there easily. You can also find information about the workbook and the process at mydeathplan.com.
And the price is a good price.
I think so. I think it's very accessible at $29.99.
Oh,
I don't think you can beat
affordable.
that.
Affordable.
Remember my goal is 2 things: demystify death and increase death planning through education.
Yes.
So for me, it wasn't about the price of the workbook, but what I know historically is that when you don't pay for things, you're less likely to use them.
Yeah.
So when you have a little bit of skin in the game, that's what the $29.99 represents. I think it encourages you to go ahead and take the next step of actually completing it.
Yes. One last question. I know you mentioned that there are some people that have downloaded it and haven't completed it. The app will help them with the reminders.
Yes.
For that.
Yes.
Okay. Are there any other push outs that you're doing for those that may not download the app but have already downloaded
the workbook? Yes. So don't delay because we're still in the development phases of the app. If you download the workbook, you'll automatically have access to the app when it's available.
Perfect.
And you'll be able to import things right away.
Okay. Perfect. Well,
Yes.
we're so proud of you.
Thank you.
And thank
Thanks.
you
Awesome.
so much for coming. I've always admired just who you are and the person that you've been to so many people, including myself. And I'm just extremely proud of where you are and where you're going. I know you feel bamboozled by Jesus, like we were talking about in
Right.
our Orgies book.
Right.
But you have handled everything with grace as you do with every other aspect of your life. And I'm just extremely grateful that you've shared this with us and with our listeners. And I'm excited to see the app and all of the other things that
Thank you
are
so
in store
much.
for you. I love you.
Thank you.
Thank you
Love you
so
too.
much.
Thank you.
All right, Bloom fam. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks for joining us.